What's up, everyone? Welcome to the April 1st edition of FanDuel Tournament Plays presented by Prize Picks. I'm your host, Adam Scherer. You can follow me on Twitter at ShipMyMoneyDFS. And as a reminder, you get one free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum when you sign up and make a deposit at Prize Picks. Be sure to use the code Awesemo to receive a 100% first deposit bonus up to $100. We have a crazy 10-game NBA slate. It is definitely nearing the end of the NBA season. We have two different teams that have 8 players tonight. We have another team or two more teams that don't have much more than that. Detroit's injury report just came out, ruling out several players there as well. One thing that is nice about slates like this, while it can be a bit overwhelming and it's very likely to be extremely high scoring and you don't have a huge margin for error, is that because there are so many good value plays, you're still going to have the field sort of concentrating on a few specific plays, and it opens up the ability to pivot to some other lower owned guys that do still have a similar range of outcomes. So in some ways, it actually is kind of similar to a normal slate. It's just different in that it's going to be much higher scoring, and there's just an overload of value. But still plenty of stuff that we can look at. As always, be sure to tune into the deeper dive and live before lock on the Awesemo YouTube channel. For now, we're going to take a look at 5 of the top tournament options on FanDuel using the boom bust tool on awesemo.com. Starting at number 5, Grayson Allen is projected for 8% ownership. He has a 13% chance of being in the optimal lineup. He's only $3,600 and he is shooting guard only. He's not a great point per minute guy, but everybody becomes a little bit better when you don't have to share the ball with any of Giannis, Middleton, Holiday. Brooke Lopez won't be out there either, although, Portis is a higher usage guy than Lopez, assuming Portis draws the start at center. Grayson Allen will need to do more offensively tonight. He's really inexpensive, clearly is not priced for those guys to be out, and isn't pulling much ownership right now either. Number 4, Isaiah Roby, $7,000 price tag with power forward and center eligibility. Roby is projected for about 9% ownership with a 13% chance of being in the optimal lineup. Oklahoma City is one of the teams I was referencing that only has 8 players available tonight. And in addition to that, one of those 8 players is Jeremiah Robinson Earl, who was limited to about 16 minutes in their last game. So it's likely that they actually have closer to 7.5 players tonight. It's extremely likely that you get 30 plus or mid 30s in minutes from Isaiah Roby. He's around the fantasy point per minute player. He has a good matchup against the Detroit Pistons, and he's just not projected for much ownership tonight. Number 3, Robert Covington, currently only projected for 4% ownership. I think it's likely that does come up a bit, but he has a 13% chance of being in the optimal lineup. So there's plenty of room for that ownership to come up before he starts being over-owned. He's $5,000, small forward and power forward eligible. In over 300 minutes with the Clippers, Covington has actually averaged 1.07 FanDuel points per minute, but also you're just playing without Paul George. You're playing without Reggie Jackson. There's no Marcus Morris. There's no Nicholas Batum. The Clippers are another of the teams that I was referencing that only have 8 players available tonight. So it's likely that you get plenty of minutes for Robert Covington. And even if he doesn't continue to average over a fantasy point per minute, at $5,000, you're not going to need that for him to pay off his salary. And then, of course, there is more usage to go around, more rebounding opportunities potentially as well. So he still projects as a strong option at $5,000. Number 2, Luka Doncic, projected for a healthy 30% ownership, but with a 32% chance of being in the optimal lineup. Doncic is $11,300. He has point guard and shooting guard eligibility. The shooting guard eligibility, of course, makes it a little bit easier to get him into lineup since you have 4 roster spots instead of 2. He has a favorable matchup against the Washington Wizards, and it's just not going to be very difficult to get to him given how many inexpensive, very strong value options there are. And number 1, coming in as the top tournament option, despite pretty heavy ownership, Bobby Portis is projected for 25% ownership. I would not be surprised if that number comes up, but he also has a 39% chance of being in the optimal lineup. So we have a pretty wide margin between his chances of success and his current ownership projection. He is power forward and center eligible. He's only $5,000. I'm assuming he starts in place of Brooke Lopez. If he doesn't, then I think there's reason for concern because that could indicate that they're going to limit Portis's minutes since he is a main piece of their rotation. And while Milwaukee is extremely shorthanded tonight, they actually do still have plenty of bodies available if they wanted to say just give more minutes to Serge Ibaka, give more minutes to Mamoukelashvili or something like that. They certainly could, but assuming that that Portis is in the starting lineup. I'm going to assume that he's playing a lot of minutes. And at $5,000, without any of the other high usage guys available on Milwaukee, he pretty easily looks like one of the best plays on the slate and isn't getting as much ownership right now, at least, as he deserves. So to recap, the top 5 tournament options on FanDuel: number 5, Grayson Allen; number 4, Isaiah Roby; number 3, Robert Covington; number 2, Luka Doncic; and number 1, Bobby Portis.